You ever get the distinct feeling that the only one in the world that wants to hang out with you is your dog?
Not even me. My dog wants to hang out with my wife.
3, 2, 1, go! Riddle me this one. When I say Jaguar, what comes to mind for you?
Oh, uh, I'm a car nut, so I think British, storied past, racing, green, aristocrat, heritage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You run any of those terms through any analysis, any AI filter, all positive words, right? Green, British racing green, iconic. Like one of the most important colors ever created in the history of colors, right? You think about the E-Type, the Mark II, the XK120, right? I had to look up those actual models, but I can picture them. I can close my eyes. The most beautiful cars ever. There has
Yeah.
been, ballpark, 75,000 different models of cars in the history of car manufacturing. The E-Type, you can maybe make an argument against this being the number one most beautiful car ever made. You can maybe argue against it, but you cannot argue against it being the top 1%. This fucking thing is so beautiful. It'll never be matched. Nobody's ever going to go back to that level of industrial design. And then these nimrods come along and decide to flush it all down the toilet bowl, get rid of the entire brand, recreate everything with, I don't know, in our career, the most mocked ad campaign ever. Those folks just got terminated. I don't know what the name of the agency is. I don't care. I don't want to say it anyway if I did, but like, what's your thoughts on all this?
Yeah. I think the head of marketing and the agency were let go. Ah, man, you know, they just turned away from their roots, right? Did you see the card that they actually put out in conjunction with the campaign? It
Yeah.
it's not bad. It's definitely challenging in a good way. Bold, beautiful, all that sort of stuff. They just wrapped it in the wrong package. They abandoned who they were and tried to be different, cut against the grain, you know, uh, but it was so trivial, so played, so obvious that they fooled no one,
So
and they
superficial.
became their own joke.
Their own joke. When you sent it to me the first time, ballpark a few months ago, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a spoof. And I think 9 people out of 10, I'm making that up, probably thought it was a fucking spoof. Like, no way this is real.
Like, think about your audience. Who buys Jaguars, right? So, I think there's two strategies a brand can take. Like, you can play to the people who buy it, right? Or you can abandon them and go towards a brand new audience and try to bring them in. I I mean, this was this was the whole kind of before the woke backlash. It was just at the end of it. We had not had our election here in the US. And I think a lot of people were confused as to which way culturally we were going to go, not just here in the US, but globally. And were you going to embrace this kind of progressive movement, or was there going to be some pushback? And I think we found that there's a little bit of pushback, right? Maybe a lot in some areas. They bet on the wrong horse. That's all. I give them a lot of credit for doing something daring and different. I think the execution sucked, but I think you could have done the same thing, but embrace your core audience, but just completely evolve how they see themselves.
I think
And
most of us in advertising breathed a sigh of relief that it didn't work.
yeah,
Because if this thing worked, all of us were like, wait a second, I am way confused right now. Taking one of the most iconic brands in the entire industry, if not the entire history of mankind, and flushing it down the toilet. I did a little research. The brand name alone, right? Interbrand and companies like that find the value of brand names, just the name, the logo, etc. $1.2 billion. And their brief was basically like, nah, let's flush it. Like, you know what that is? That's pomposity.
Yeah.
Pomposity is horrible. Like, great creative comes from confidence and humility. Pomposity is like the exact opposite of confidence. Pomposity is when you lack confidence and you just try to put on this facade, right? But you need to find the timeless and the timely, the brand equity and the cultural currency. You need to tie these things together. It's okay to embrace a new progressive movement, a new progressive audience, but flushing, what is it, 100 years approximately of history and equity
It
never works.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think what they should have done is tapped into kind of what are those, indisputable truths around our core audience, right? And then pushed out from there. This audience is not a fluorescent purple wearing in a suit, like pushing against convention. If you drive a Jaguar, actually you're embracing convention, right? But you think you're doing it in a unique and ownable way. Like, unpack that. I think that there's so much creative fodder there. But like the brands that go completely against who they are, like there's just a graveyard of campaigns, right? Where people just went down the wrong path and had to backtrack the other way. I mean, one example in the last couple of years was Bud Light. Like, I'm I'm all for trying to break into a whole new audience, and I believe that's in many ways one of the key winning strategies to growing your business. Not trying to convince somebody to buy more of what you have, but to go after an entirely new audience. But you've got to you can't abandon the brand, because I'm sorry, it is a small world, and your core audience is going to see what you're doing, right? And if they catch wind of it and they don't agree with it, then you're going to feel it from them. And that's exactly what happened with Jaguar. The core audience basically said, like, this is no longer the brand I understand or I want to be associated with. Like, you have to think about that if you're going to open up into a new audience, a new market.
It doesn't appeal to the new audience anyway, because what are you trying to appeal with? All you're creating is cognitive dissonance, right? The brain literally can't digest what that story is, and everybody loses. You know, as you were explaining that, I was picturing Ralph Lauren has been brilliant with this forever. Burberry figured this
Mhm.
out a decade ago, right? How do you connect the old with the new, the equity with the cultural currency?
Completely agree. Yeah, it's a shame, but again, we're here to also, hold up high brands that take risks. I applaud the risk. I really do. I think they probably should have checked themselves with the execution.
You're nicer than me. Having a little trouble applauding it.
Maybe.
Like,
Yep.
obviously, risk and boldness are at the core of what we do. You have to be novel, right? The thing that keeps you and me and any good marketer up at night is this concept of invisible ads. Like, if you're not bold with your thinking, your content, your ads, they're utterly invisible. But I don't think that necessarily means being risky. There's a difference between bold and risky, right? Bold is how do you push that thinking and leverage that brand equity?
Yes.
Risky is how do we just flush something that took a century to build and go in a totally new direction based upon absolutely no data or insights?
You know what they should have done? Because you turned me on to this show, Mobland.
Oh, that's a great show, right?
Great show. Okay, you want to break into a new audience? Jaguar should have had Harry, right, driving their car. Their
What
most
car did Harry drive?
badass. Harry drives an Audi RS6.
Dude, I saw that car. I was like, I want to get that car. That car is cool.
I
He's
wanna get that
cool.
car.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Audi does a great job. I have no insight in this, but I see them in a lot of shows and I feel like they're doing a lot of great product placement.
I looked at that car, I'm like, "That's what I wanna drive."
Because
An
what is
RS6.
Harry? Harry's the toughest. Harry's the bravest. Harry's got the greatest value system. The whole thing depends on this one character, and he's driving that car. And the car looks fantastic. And there's no way, as a dude watching that, in your mind, you're not like, oh man, I want to get that car because I'll be a little bit more like Harry. Like, it's
Yeah,
weird to admit that, but it's true.
and think about it, like, "Oh, I wanna be upper class. I wanna be an aristocrat." Like, if you wanna open up to new audiences, have Harry drive it, because Harry is the new aristocratic class that is rising, right? Same with the Harrigans. Like, that's how you open it up into a new audience. The challengers who are coming up and rising up, the new bourgeoisie in any society, in any culture, find the heroes there and let them carry the message. Harry is perfect for that.
So true, right? It's a different bougie audience nowadays, and they're not as soft. Harry's a great example. I was also thinking like, look, dude, as you know, I don't work in creative, but I was also thinking like stunts and events. Like, what happened if you got the hottest club or the hottest event and all these beautiful people were pouring out, and then all of these beautiful Jaguars started picking people up, and they're driven by supermodels picking up people, and they're partying, and you film it, whatever. That could be a shitty idea, but there's literally a million things you can do other than flushing your brand down the toilet bowl.
With what seemed like stock footage, right? It looked like stock footage. Anybody could have created this, going to Getty Images and finding some footage and laying some supers over it. Like another way to capture new audiences is to show your product in a new light, right? With a new audience that's innovative. So Puma caters to obviously athletes and all that sort of stuff, but it was really starting to get picked up by a lot of kids wearing industry clothes. So Puma and Droga got together and they put together Loud, I think it was called Loud Chorus or Hard Chorus, and Playoff Hardcore. And it was a whole bunch of hooligans in a pub singing a cappella. I wanna stand with you on a mountain. I wanna play. And it was brilliant. And it basically, there's almost zero product in it, a couple logos here and there. It went for a minute plus long, and it took, I would say, like not only the ad world by storm, but the whole sportswear category as well. To be like, oh my God, we don't have to show athletes.
Yeah.
We just don't.
Reminds me of a campaign you introduced me to. I watch once every couple months when I need some inspiration. Adidas House Party. Remember
Yes.
that one?
Yes.
Describe that one.
Oh my God, another brilliant play. But it was basically filmed almost like a run and gun camera coming up to a house in a neighborhood. Party was going on and entering in. There's people you don't recognize. And then every now and then you get a glimpse of a celebrity superstar who is not being treated like a celebrity superstar. They're just having a good time at a house party. David Beckham is over in the corner. It's grainy, it's harsh, it's beautiful.
Music, incredible.
Yeah, and you go and you look at the comments and people are like, holy, one of the greatest ads that I didn't realize was an ad of all time.
Yes. You know what they hit? They hit inspiration.
Yeah.
If there's anything I think anyone could take away from this podcast is if you really analyze the greatest brands in the history of mankind, inspiration is at the core of the playbook. It's not the only part of the playbook. We talk a lot about the journey and all of that, but you have to inspire, right? You think about your point about Harry driving the Audi. He's inspirational. Everybody wants to be bigger, stronger, tougher, like Harry, right? You talk about Adidas House Party. Everybody wants to be at that party, and it's got that believability. Like, yeah, man, if I was walking by that house party, of course I'd walk in and get down to the music and have cool dance moves. Like,
yeah,
it's believable, it's tangible, but most importantly, it's inspirational.
Inspirational. You know what, another one that I love so much in the last couple of years? 7-Eleven, Take It to 11.
Dude, I haven't seen that.
They launched it with a bunch of like urban girls on these awesome lowrider bicycles as they are, it's like, at night, looks like it's somewhere in, LA, and it takes place around a 7-Eleven. And they've all got their, drinks in their hand, they're cruising around. The music's on point, the video's on point, their attitudes are great. And they took that and launched it and then built an entire platform around Take It to 11. Genius platform name, right? Yeah. Turn it up to 11, take it to 11. We're 7-Eleven. Like, we understand who you are and all the different cultures and people that come to us. And we're going to embrace it and celebrate it. And they did it in such a simple, poetic narrative that didn't rely on a whole lot of product placement or any other strategy than we understand you, we get you.
Yeah, empathy and inspiration with a little bit of fun thrown in.
Yep.
So speaking of brands doubling back on mistakes like Jaguar, who's moved on from their agency and their head of marketing, HBO or Max has now done the same thing, which they've double backed on their mistake, and HBO is becoming core to the brand name again. What are your thoughts on that one?
Oh, I think they did a research study. I think they put out a survey. Some researcher walked in, is like, hey, just so you're aware, people are using Macs, but they had no idea it was HBO. It sat on my Apple interface for probably a year. I didn't know what it was. I would go watch HBO shows through Amazon.
Yeah.
That's how I found like HBO stuff, because Amazon carries everything through their Amazon streaming. But Max would sit there. I had no idea. Complete blunder. Why would you take, what has it been, 30, 40 plus years of brand
The
equity and
research
throw it
I
away?
found, the HBO brand name, the name alone is worth $6 billion. $6 billion. And somebody was like, nah, we don't need it. Let's go with Max. So then when you go up, not only, and then I think you and I agree, like your brand is the experience. And then you go up on Max, it just looks like everything else. Hulu is a great experience. Netflix is a great experience. Now Max is a great experience, looks just like them. Like you just flushed your core differentiator for no reason. And I would argue the reason is the same reason that they did at Jaguar, which is pomposity. There's just one person or a group of people like, nope, I know better. I know better than 30 years of equity. I know better than $6 billion. Not confident, not creative, not bold, just pompous.
There could have been a good reason. Maybe at the time, maybe they thought that, the streaming audience was going to be so new and not part of our old audience that they deserve their own brand, right? Lo and behold, the same people that had cable now are streaming it over their Roku, their Apple. It's the same audience. And here's what I don't get. If you ever watch HBO, they kept the original HBO title credits, right? Still to this day.
Yeah.
And my son, who's 18, looked at it. He goes, I love that it goes like, boom, like you'll see it. Like that is the same intro that HBO has had since 1983 when I started watching it when I was like 12 years old, 13 years
Yes.
old on the show.
Whether it's
And
MTV or HBO or 20th Century Fox, like you see that thing,
yeah,
it's like a warm security blanket. It literally neurologically changes you and said, all right, let's ease into this. I'm ready for some high quality entertainment. And I think the lesson there is like no campaign, no piece of creative is going to be more valuable than brand equity. If you look at the value of the most valuable brands in the world, Apple, 500 billion, Microsoft, 350 billion, Amazon, 300 billion, Google, 300 billion. These are interbrand estimates of just the brand name, the logo alone, the neurological impact, that cognitive shortcut. It's as much as major nations, Austria, Norway, Nigeria, Belgium. Their GDP is the same as the value as the Apple brand, right? So when you're
crazy.
taking a brand like Jaguar or HBO, which are lower in value, but still in the billions, it's lunacy. Let's use that as a segue over to the power of an agency to think creatively and think confidently, not have the pomposity that leads to these mistakes, right? And I think that's the value of finding a great agency. And in the news right now, we've got Gray Advertising, one of the great brands ever in the history of advertising agencies, is getting folded into Ogilvy. So I'm reading this. I'm like, holy, they're getting rid of the Gray name? That's crazy. Turns out they're not getting rid of the Gray name. This is just like a structural thing, which is now Gray is part of Ogilvy and Ogilvy is part of WPP. Like, I couldn't understand it. I've been in this industry a while. I'm like, I'm not quite sure what you guys are trying to say. And then it comes on the heels of Omnicom, who purchased Interpublic recently and became a $30 billion entity. Here's what I think is ludicrous about both of these, which is brands hire agencies for culture, period. And I'm not talking about foosball, ping pong, Hawaiian shirt Friday, all that bullshit. What they're looking for is fresh thinking. They're looking for boldness, bravery, work ethic, people who are comfortable being uncomfortable. You know what great agencies do? They don't sleep well at night. That's what they do. Like you and I, since the day we started this thing, we don't sleep that well at night. We go to bed knowing any one of our clients could fire us. And we wake up in the morning with fresh ideas on our mind. And it's our job to hire people who love that stuff. Doesn't make us better than anybody else, but it does make us different. The people who work at corporations, they've got a safer structure. They probably don't work as many hours. It's probably not as stressful, but it's probably also not as exciting, right? When you think about these huge companies, you think about the banking industry, the healthcare industry, CPGs, food, hospitality. They're gigantic, right? $300 billion companies, they can't make mistakes, right? If you make a mistake, billions of dollars can get lost. Travel, people can die. Food, people can die. So it has to be about risk aversion. That's how big companies have to perform. And it's a beautiful, powerful thing that America in capitalism has really mastered. But then to think you can go to an agency that's now worth $30 billion, like that agency holding company is now bigger than some of its clients. So what is that client actually hiring?
And what's the goal of this monster ad holding company agency, right? If you were to ask the people that run the offices, run the company, it is to reward the shareholders. But an independent shop, I can tell you firsthand from all the independent owners we know, it's not to reward and line our pockets. Sure, that's great. It's to continue to grow by creating great, challenging, inventive work. That's what gets us up at night. I could care less on whether my margin is, 5% or 20% for any given endeavor. If I am literally pushing the brand and getting our clients promoted and creating something that um, uh, basically makes their catch register ring, gets them accolades, and that is a reward enough, I think, for all the people that do it. And I think that's what I think some of these big brands miss is, especially these big agencies. And we've seen it, right? Because we've hired the people from these ad holding companies. It all starts with the bottom line. Now, I'm not saying they don't do great work. I think there's a lot of great work that can come out of it. You just need big budgets to make that happen, right? If you got a big budget, like they will pull out all the stops. But if
Yeah.
you're a challenger brand and you need to make your dollar go as far as possible, it's really hard to do that with an ad holding company.
Yeah. No, it's such a great point. I know both of us well enough to know that we can't even say what our margins were for the past quarter. It's just not what gets us up in the morning. But we know how great the creative was. We know whether or not we got our clients promoted, right? We know if we're hiring the right people who want to do more breakthrough creative. We're not insane. We're looking for long-term results. We want things to be great in the long term. We want to grow our top line. We want to grow our bottom line. We want to win awards. But hiring a holding company, which is beholden to the street every single quarter and is looking to eke out 0.1% in net margin better every quarter, I don't think you're hiring the culture you want. If you need to get a piece of creative into every corner of this planet quickly and consistently, go with a holding company, right? That makes sense. But other than that specific need, I just don't get it.
There's certain business use cases that make a lot of sense. I just I just think they're few and far between. I mean, most most brands and clients are coming to an agency, an independent shop for culture and culturally relevant work, right? And that means taking risks, right? To start to define and align yourself with certain cultural currencies out there. That takes risk. And it's really hard to do when you are held every month to certain metrics from the hires up. Risk gets eaten away at organizations like that. And it becomes, right? Yeah, a risk off environment, as they say, where not worth it. And I think that's where you see the proof is in the pudding. These ad holding companies have been struggling, right,
Yeah.
recently, and you're
Yeah.
seeing smaller shops start to take the duties away from huge ad holding companies. The aversion to a smaller shop running a very large account, especially in creative, has really disappeared over the last 5 years.
Yeah. And I think you're making a good point. We don't want to be like sour grapes. There's 500,000 brands from around the world. There's a handful of brands who've got massive global needs, and they're a great fit for these holding companies. But that probably leaves 99 point something significant for the rest of the world that ultimately needs agencies that are going to be more nimble, more bold, more collaborative, more integrated between their data and creativity, and ultimately less comfortable and loving the fact that they're less comfortable.
Agreed.
Which segues over nicely to the fact that Dr. Pepper has now closed down their in-house agency. 100% of our clients have some in-house agency capabilities. What are your thoughts on Dr. Pepper getting rid of their in-house agency and the concept of in-house agencies in general?
This is a tough one. You know, as an agency that's competing sometimes with in-house agencies, I I don't want to like them. But I also have friends that have left agencies and gone to run an in-house agency, like at Rakuten. I have a good friend who went over there to run, and he has done amazing work. I think he was there for 5 years and did like world-class Super Bowl spots to everyday social campaigns. I think it's just hard from a culture standpoint to maintain the independence to do really good work that is free of, I think, like corporate culture creeping in. That's where I think it gets really difficult. It's hard to fire people, right? It's easy to fire an agency. It's hard to fire an in-house agency. And I think that fear alone that sits with agencies propels us to do increasingly better work, to find increasingly better people to work on your account, to be your confidant, right? You know, to really sit there, like you and I, our role is to sit with our client leadership and say, what could we be doing better?
Yeah.
What resources can we put in your account that would accelerate?
What keeps you up at night and how can we absorb that for you? Because we're
Yeah,
crazy enough to love that.
exactly. But
Yeah.
it's hard to do. So I think what you're seeing with Dr. Pepper is, man, the time it will take to rehire, right, agency leadership in-house and redo the entire team, I could be a lot quicker if I just outsource it. And imagine that's probably what went through their head. Like, yes, we can do it. We could totally build it in-house, but I don't think it's worth the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes there are victories like your buddy over at Rakuten. And then there's sometimes there are dramatic failures like the famous one with Pepsi. And then you've just got this basic mathematical truth. Dr. Pepper's parent company, Keurig, is a $15 billion a year company. Dr. Pepper drives ballpark 25% of that revenue. They've served approximately 2.6 billion servings of Dr. Pepper around the world every day. They're in every continent in something like 30 different countries around the planet. You know how fucking hard that is to create that product, distribute that product, do it timely, do it efficiently, do it safely, do it profitably? That requires, to the aforementioned point, a strong degree of risk aversion. You don't want to be messing with that. That is an incredible system. You and I, as advertisers, couldn't even begin to imagine how operationally difficult that is. And then you want to take a totally different type of culture, one that's predicated on boldness and a certain degree of risk taking. It's really hard to do. Really hard. Like, I've got this theory. That everybody actually knows how intelligent they really are, right? Like, you grow up and you get those statewide exams every year. Starts in like first grade. You get that test, second grade, third grade, all the way up through the SATs. They call in your parents, right? They walk you through this stuff. We know how smart we are. Nobody wants to talk about it. And you can argue against that and you can call me anything in the book, right? But you can't call me lazy. I know how hard I have to work to keep all the folks over at Questus happy and all the creative, always great clients happy. Like, I never understood, why do brands want to take that on? Like, the margin of a good agency, most agencies is ballpark 10%. Sometimes it's 20%. They've got some scale, so you're saving 30% on your creative, maybe? Because to your point, when it doesn't work, you got to reset it. That's really expensive. Like, I don't understand the motivation when you got a bunch of psychos like you and me and all the other independent agency folks who are willing to just bend over backwards to come up with crazy creative. So I get it. I think in-house agencies, I think they do best when they're focusing a lot on production work because there's no need to pay the increased rates to outsource a lot of that.
I have a
Yeah.
slightly different take. I think in-house agencies work really well when they focus in on being the brand stewards.
Meaning,
Um, Meaning they are there to help guide agencies, maintain brand continuity, consistency, um, uh, and then they're able to onboard and ingest great ideas from external agencies, but make sure they don't lead the brand in the wrong direction.
yep.
Capital One is a great example. Great internal agency that does fantastic work, and they've really perfected the way they work with outside agencies, where they're extracting the best that an outside agency can do without harming the brand, but really help guiding the work to evolve the brand. That where I think it's a really powerful partnership between all the agencies and the in-house brand team.
Which I think segues over to the critical component, whether it's taking it full circle back to Jaguar and HBO, holding companies, independent agencies, in-house agencies. The key to success in all of this is collaboration. In a world where the audiences are completely insatiable, there's never been a brand that's created too much content. There's always a need for more content to fulfill upon the big moments, the little moments, all of the moments that matter. It requires collaboration because it's no longer about creating that 30-second spot and repeating it as we talk about all the time, but it's about your technology, your content, your traditional media, your social media, your brick and mortar, your digital, all need to collaborate. Every skill set under the sun: project management, data, analytics, design, copy, video, editing, reporting, distribution. Like, the good old days must have been awesome when 2 or 3 geniuses could create just a 30-second spot and the audience would sit around and watch it. But I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to collaboration, right? And the collaboration starts with culture. You need to build a culture rooted in collaboration so that whether or not you're a big agency, a small agency, an in-house agency, an external agency, because nowadays it's usually a combination of all of those things, you have to find those synergies. The sum has to be greater. What is the expression? The
Than the
sum.
parts.
Thank you very much. It's all about synergies. The whole has to be greater than the sum of the parts.
See that? We are greater than the parts.
We are greater than the parts. We are synergistic. I think we're good, man. You want to wrap it here?
Yeah, I think so. I got an interview in 2 minutes.
Which means that's enough pontificating for today. Thanks for joining me. And thanks everyone for listening to Brand Champions. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Brand Champions is a Questus production. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and review wherever you tune in. You can submit mailbag questions to brandchampions@questus.com.